in a couple of weeks, and I am very sad that I only have one more year left after a couple of weeks. So that's. I'll start by saying that I've really loved my Northwestern experience, and I'm happy to share it with you. Just a quick refresher: I'm a junior. I'm from New York, studying journalism, and that's take journalism inside and out of the classroom has contributed to a sizable portion of what I've done here at Northwestern. I think some of the best experiences I've had have come both, in and out of the classroom, whether it's taking a class that unfortunately was kind of pandemic affected, where I was supposed to go to London during spring break and report with a Medill class, but the skills that I learned there, it's worked very well, and that I've been able to take them outside of the classroom. Whether for me it's covering sporting events, whether it is going to the basketball stadium or the football stadium, or traveling quite literally the country, not during a pandemic and during the pandemic, to cover sports, whether it is on independently, or for through Inside NU, which is we operate independently, or with the radio station, which we're very fortunate to have a partnership with the athletic department, that we are the official broadcast partner of both women's basketball and baseball. So in a normal year, we travel with them, we take their charters, we eat with them, we truly see what college, what life is like, kind of as a college athlete. And for us, I mean, it's about as good as it gets. So I'm very fortunate to have had those experiences. I just want to make sure I get through all the things I have kind of down here. Relating to academics, as Jenna was saying, very flexible. I've always found my experience here to be very flexible. I think I decided earlier this year that I wanted to add a history minor, because I had the legal studies minor, because it was actually a friend who suggested it, that I do the legal studies minor, because I was torn between history and sociology, because I want to understand why the world is the way that it is. And I think history helps do that. Obviously learning history and how things have gotten to be the way they are, as well as sociology, which is quite in the name, the study of society. So being that I didn't want to pick between the two of them, legal studies is somewhat of a cross between them, at least the department's offerings here are. So that turned out to be a really convenient thing for me to minor in. And it's super interesting to me. And then in talking to my advisor, who I will say I truly love my academic advisor. It's funny because she started the same year I was a freshman. So it's almost like we've come up together, and she knows me and my friends as like, her first kids. And so she's, if there's ever any kind of question I have about, how do I register for this class? Or, what is my academic chart looking like here? And why do I not have many classes left on my chart? I go to her, and whether it's an email or in person or Zoom, hopefully back to in person soon, I've been very lucky, and I've had a great advising experience. And I would encourage you, both in high school and in college, to actively seek out your academic advisors, because that's how you really get the most out of it. And as my dad always said, if you ask for something, the worst they can say is no. And so sometimes you just got to go make an introduction. And then if they are seeing that you are going to reach out to them, they're going to be more responsive to you. They're truly going to kind of engage with you. So that's what I found, and would encourage you guys to do in multiple arenas. But what's next? Just before my brain keeps running 100 miles an hour as I try to share my Northwestern experience as a freshman, right? The freshman experience. Wherever you end up going to school, I would encourage you to not think that you have to have it figured out from the minute you step on campus. I'm a junior, and we just went through a pandemic, and it still feels like as I kind of emerged from the pandemic, I'm refiguring things out. But I remember coming here, especially the quarter system, we do start a little later. So my friends had all gone off to school, and I was so ready to come. And I felt like I had to know everything to begin with and be doing everything all the time. And, I think that's a common thought among a lot of incoming freshmen and, early on freshmen, that you always have to be doing something and you always have to be with other people. And I kind of realized over time that doesn't have to be true. That you said the same way that you design your own academic plan, You design, you choose what you want to do from all the extracurriculars that you have here. You make time for yourself. You have to make time for yourself, set your own schedule. It doesn't mean you're going to be doing, doesn't mean you're not going to not like some one thing you do in every day, but realize that you're doing things for yourself, especially when it comes to getting to school. It's important to realize you don't have to have it all figured out to begin with. Over time, you find your niche here. I think everyone finds a niche here. I've found my niche here, and I couldn't really imagine it anywhere else. And ultimately, what I think a lot of it comes down to is the people, and the people here are. I couldn't ask for anything more. I felt like the reason I chose Northwestern is, several reasons. That it was far enough from home, but it's very easy to get to from New York. Needed a campus, has a beautiful campus, near a city, easy to get to. I love exploring Chicago. Went a couple times in the last couple of weeks, and it's really great to have it next door, even though sometimes it's easy to forget about. They had the academics I wanted. They had a great journalism school and big time sports. So being that I want to cover them, that was kind of a necessity for me. And then I just felt like the profile of the school, that it wasn't too big, wasn't too small, that I would be meeting my people here, and I have. And the great thing is, I think about Northwestern is you don't have to have one type of your people, I realized, and so whether they are my people who I met in my dorm through my orientation group, who most of us lived on the same floor coincidentally freshman year, and I am still close. Like, those are some of my closest friends to this day, or they're my friends who I met through Medill classes or extracurriculars. We had a lovely senior send-off last night on the Lakeville. We had a bonfire for our radio seniors last night. And those are people I didn't think I would really get to know as well as I did. And they're some of my closest friends as well, or people I've met through Jewish life. It's, the university likes to say, and is in your DNA, and, it's the slogan, but there are so many options. There truly are, whether it is academically, extracurricularly, socially, that I've found that I've always liked to kind of spread things out and have kind of diversify what I like to do. And I think here, I've really been able to do that. And that's made me quite happy. Whether, I think speaking on Jewish life here, the same can be said, in that there are so many outlets and so many different ways to connect with your Judaism on campus and live a Jewish life. I've never been the most active in Hillel. I've gone several times. I love picking up my Passover meals. A couple months ago, I go to high holiday services sponsored by Hillel. But everybody finds their different ways to connect with their Judaism. For me, I found it in a fraternity. For others, my roommate did one of the classes through Hillel called JLF, which I'm forgetting exactly what it stands for, but it's basically exploring your Judaism through different, kind of existential questions every week. Someone from Hillel can correct me because I might be wrong on that. The Challah for Hunger drives, or the club that Hillel runs, Challah for Hunger, produces some great challah. And I know some of my good friends are in the Jewish Theater Ensemble, which I believe is affiliated with Hillel's as well, and they do a lot of really good stuff. So, long story short is you can have a lot. You really can, and there's a lot of, if not everything is you're going to find it here. And before I take more of Michael's talking points, that is about all I have right now. But I will certainly answer any and all of your questions. And I guess I'll hand it to Michael and Rachel.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Eli. I love the fact that Eli noted, I'm not that involved with Hillel, and then you just rattled off all the things that either you or friends of yours and others know about in terms, and Hillel is not the only avenue. As Eli mentioned, there's fraternity life. There's a Jewish fraternity, AE Pi. There are sororities that have a lot of Jewish activity. There's a Chabad connected to the campus. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take a step back. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Simon. I'm the executive director of the Hillel here at Northwestern. Rachel Moroff is our amazing development associate, my colleague. We're really thrilled to be here with you. Jenna is an old friend. Hi, Jenna. I only caught the last part. You didn't sound that rusty. You sounded fantastic. Um, and I'm in my almost the end of my 11th year here at Northwestern. Before that, I was at a little campus at Harvard in back east. And one of the things, listening to Jenna and then listening to Eli, there are lots of wonderful universities out there. There is something special about Northwestern because there are many things that are special. But Eli talked about, you can find your people in all kinds of different ways. I like to describe Jenna, I didn't catch the beginning. Sometimes it's described as a Goldilocks kind of campus. And I think that both in terms of, as generally, it's not like too big or too small. It's close to a big city, but it kind of has a small town, college town feel. The Jewish community, like it is not a giant and overwhelming Jewish community, but it's a very substantial. We're about 15% of the undergraduates here at Northwestern. It's about we think there's about 300 per class, but it's not an overwhelmingly involved. You don't see 1,000 students at Shabbat dinner on every Friday night, but on a typical non-pandemic Friday night, we'll see between 70 and 100 students at the Hillel hanging out and being involved in some Shabbat activity. Eli took a bunch of the great talking points because there are all kinds of avenues to get involved Jewishly. The way that Northwestern, when you go on a tour here, back when there are tours, and there, God willing, will be tours again, some of you are rising, I think rising juniors or seniors, hopefully you'll be able to come for in-person tours on campuses like ours. You hear on those tours, there are 450 or something student organizations. And if you don't find what you're looking for, you can create it and we'll give you the resources to make that happen. And Hillel very much embraces that sort of ethos. And so Challah for Hunger, Jewish Learning Fellowship, social justice, Israel. If you are interested in those, theater, a cappella, we've got groups that do those. If you have something else that you want to express Jewishly, we'll help you make it happen. The only other thing I'll add, Northwestern really pushes during like the non-pandemic era, students to go out and explore the world. And Hillel is also doing that a lot. We've had trips in the past and hopefully in the near future to places like Morocco, Poland, of course to Israel, but also to like the US-Mexico border to look at immigration with a Jewish lens. So we really try to meet students where they are Jewishly, provide resources for them to grow as Jews and as human beings, and to be really engaged, not just in being part of enriching the Jewish community, but in terms of enriching the campus as a whole and the world. I had told Naomi I wanted to kind of limit the time because it's a small enough group that hopefully if you have any questions or you want to hear more about Eli's story or from Jenna about admissions or just about Jewish life or anything else from me or Rachel, we're here as resources for you in the time that we have available. So Naomi, is that cool or did I miss anything important that
No,
that needed to be covered?
that is great. I'll just add, I live in Evanston, so like 5 minutes from Northwestern, and it is beautiful. There's so much to do, and I just love it, and it's so fun living by the lake. So I'm just gonna add my 2 cents. But I'm gonna turn things over to all of you, our participants. If you have questions, I'm gonna moderate this Q&A, and then Michael, Jenna, Rachel, Eli will answer them. So. Yeah, Jaden.
So I have an admissions question. So I'm wondering, like, how important is it to have like the really intense, rigorous classes versus like a really strong GPA and really strong extracurriculars, and like, what does that look like?
So that's a great question, and it's kind of hard to answer just because every case and every school is so different. So there are some schools where that I work with that have like 30 APs available, or there's schools that offer AP and IB classes, right? And so what does rigor look like when you can complete an AP capstone and an IB diploma at the same time versus a school where a student this year is at like an early college high school in rural North Carolina where there's like 20 kids. And so what does rigor look like at a high school like that, right? So it's very, very different. I think we're supposed to say that you're taking advantage of the rigor available to you and succeeding in those rigorous opportunities, but you're still able to like have a life outside of school. Because if we, we want full, complete citizens and like community members at Northwestern. So if you're in the library the entire time, that's great, but you're not able to build that community and be a part of all the great things that Michael and Eli mentioned. And so we want students that are going to get involved. We want students that are going to take those leadership roles. So it's great to be able to, of course, achieve academically, but what are you doing also to have that positive impact outside the classroom?
Thank you.
Great. And as Michael suggested, we can put questions in the chat as well. Yeah, Ben?
This is kind of like a general question. I think it's probably for Eli. Like, how would you like describe the school culture, and like how would you like characterize the student body?
Yes, I definitely think about this a lot, especially when talking with, say, home friends who go to different schools. And I've always found it here to be very collaborative, very helpful. Obviously, that might range by major, but I've always found it here that people want to help each other and see each other succeed. And at the same time, people want to also have fun. Nerds who like to have fun. So it's not like, there are certain weeks where you got to buckle down, and midterms, depending on what you're taking, can span what seem just like normal test weeks. But at the same time, people are working together, and you're not going to study in the unless you can't focus when you're studying with other people. You're not going to study alone, because people want to be there to help you and help each other, because people learn better when they're kind of working together.
Ben, can I also add to that? I first of all, you're right to ask Eli first, because he's the student who's experiencing. It connects a little bit with my like the Goldilocks sort of term that I use. Like I have found the Northwestern, there's no one student culture. It's a really interesting and diverse group, because you have journalism students and music and great engineering school and just great general studies, and lots of students who are like, we keep finding, I'm a music major, but I also am doing computer science, or I'm theater, but I also want to do Russian literature. And that's like not only appreciated, but like embraced here. And we're in the Big Ten. So you have a really strong school spirit. But it's nerds who, I love that, Eli, nerds who like to have fun. It's cool to care about your studies and to care about like what kind of internships you're going to have. But it's not too cool to get too intense that you forget to like be with your friends, have fun, and be involved in social life. So it's really in that way, I think, positive. And the thing Eli said also about the competitive, I think students here are driven, but they also want others not only about themselves succeed, they want others to succeed. They want to feel that they're in a supportive environment.
Yeah, Audrey?
I have like a very broad question, but how accessible are internships and other like out of school activities of that nature to students?
So we have a great resource on campus called Northwestern Career Advancement, and they do a really cool survey of the like recent graduates. So our most recent number from that class is about 60 to 70% of students have at least one internship by the time they graduate from Northwestern. Two of our schools actually have them built in. So our School of Education Social Policy has a practicum. So for an entire quarter, you're just interning. And then the Medill School of Journalism has one as well. And I'll let Eli talk about the JR because it is so cool. But we also have a great program available for all students, no matter what school you're in, called Chicago Field Studies, which is a really great program where you go interview with them. You say, all right, I'm Audrey. Here's some things I'm interested in. Here are some of the industries I'd like to work in. They go, great. And they have, like 100 partners in the Chicago area where you can intern for them for an entire quarter and receive academic credit. So it's like a great way to have kind of, I think, a first internship, because you're still living on campus. You're still a part of your organizations and your community, but then you like go to work and you go intern like 4 to 5 days a week and kind of dip your toe into the professional world. So very common. I'm sure Eli has a lot more he can share, but it's yeah.
Yeah, Medill has this program called JR, which stands for Journalism Residency, which similar thing to the practicum. It's a whole quarter where you are interning at some kind of, whether it doesn't have to be straight journalism. For some, it's marketing. They have LinkedIn, they have Facebook, some Instagram, I think. Some of it's, yeah, there's a lot there. And basically Medill sets you up with, you kind of like rank a bunch of choices, and it's almost like applying to a job but you're going to get one. And so there's a whole booklet you go through, the quarter before, and you work with the people who run the program, and then they help based on your interests and your experiences. They talk with the sites that are doing it every quarter, and that goes into your placement process. So, I mean, two of my friends from the radio station, they worked at Sports Illustrated. One was their last quarter, one's their this quarter. People are one of my good friends is at Variety right now. He talked to Richard Lewis a few weeks ago for an article that was super cool. And he'll be there through the summer. And so there are a lot of super, super interesting, both places that are up and coming as well as very established places that you get bylines in, and you get, it's great experience. And CFS, I mean, it's a great experience as well. As Jenna was saying, it's right here, it's in Chicago. I know, especially during the pandemic, it's been, if people haven't wanted to take as many Zoom classes, it's been a great opportunity for them to still get credit and maybe do a part-time internship. That's gone really well. Friends working at like a lobbying firm downtown. And so 2 days a week, he goes into the office, and he's loving it. And it's, again, as Jenna was saying, that introduction to a professional life.
Michael, do you want to end?
Oh, no, I was Debbie, do you have a question? I was saying other questions.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions, but I have your email, so no worries. So I guess my burning question is, how do you rule out schools that you just really shouldn't bother applying to because they're so competitive? Like, in terms of your profile and your scores, how do you decide if like you just really shouldn't apply to that school? It's like Northwestern, let's take for a specific example.
So I think that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I think a lot of people are probably thinking that, kind of depending where they are in their college search. I think a lot of great college counselors will tell you to apply to a great variety of schools, whether it's a variety of selectivity, whether it's a variety of location, whether it's a variety of academic interests that are available. And I always tell students, you can't get in if you don't apply. So I think if Northwestern is the place you want to be, and there are definitely ways to show that interest, whether it's coming to campus whenever we hopefully give tours, knock on wood, whether it's emailing their regional rep, all that great stuff. But we also are aware that like college applications and admission is changing. So I think it's really important just to kind of sit down as whether with your student or as a family and go, okay, what do I really want in a school? And so I always encourage students, now that it's safe to again, I can start to encourage this again, to always take a tour of a campus near you. So wherever there's a college near where you live and it's safe to walk around, they allow visitors, take a tour, walk around, and write down what they really liked about that place and what they maybe wasn't their favorite. And so that way, if they're applying to a school that's 2,000 miles away and can't visit, or you're in a pandemic and you can't visit a school, you go, okay, you know what? School X has A, B, and C. And I really, really like that. And when I saw that at this other school, but they also had, 1, 2, 3, and it wasn't super crazy about that. So I think there are definitely places, but I always tell students, you have to apply first to get in.
Yeah, I guess the follow-up is, are there, based on, GPA and test scores and, just the numbers in your hand and what you know about your kid, should we just, like certain schools based on those numbers, should we just rule out?
So Northwestern, a lot of what we call our peer schools use holistic admissions. So we are looking at, of course, test scores and if you just submit them and grades are important, but they're not the only thing. Because we know students have entire lives outside of the classroom, not only, of course, extracurriculars, whether it's sports, fine arts, getting involved in the business world, whatever it is, but there are also lots of things that can go on at home that can kind of impact that, right? So If a student has an hour and a half long commute to and from school, that may impact the amount of extracurriculars they're in, right? If a student is helping take care of two younger siblings while mom or dad are at work, that may impact their grades, right? You never know what kind of the impacts beyond just what's going on in those 6 hours in that school day. We kind of have to have that whole picture, that holistic admissions. So I think it's really great to be able to kind of zoom out and see if, okay, great, they're achieving awesome things in the classroom, but how are they again as a community member?
My only addition to that would be just back to the early decision. I think that if a student was really in Northwestern's case, and I think that's different from, because some places are early action, but I think that the one extra thing that I see among students applying is if they are really hard as set on a place. I mean, even if it's a long shot, that's the one thing where they're in a different pool to be able to have an opportunity to get seen in the early decision. So that might give a tiny bump up to someone who might otherwise be in the general pool, have a harder go at it. But but in that case, like if it's a reach, then it may be but if it's a reach, and like Jenna said, they know if I got in, boy, I would love to be there, go for it. I'm not.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Mina, and then
Yeah.
Jaden, and then Deb, if you did another follow-up. We'll
I
go back
had a
to you.
quick question to generalize. So from what it sounds like, and Ben may already know the answer, so he may be, but so do you apply to a particular school of specialty, but you can take classes on any of the schools of flexibility? Is that what I'm hearing? And like I said,
That's a great question.
I'm just jumping
Yeah.
in the middle of this. Yeah, so
You're
yeah.
totally fine. So it's different at every school at Northwestern. You apply on the Common App or the Coalition application. You have you pick your intended school and your intended major. You can be undecided in 3 of our schools: College of Arts and Sciences, School of Education, Social Policy, and our School of Engineering. If you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 17, I don't know what I want to do, that is completely valid. And I usually encourage students to apply undecided arts and sciences just because it's the largest school. You are not at a disadvantage. You apply undecided, which I think is really important to know. There's a great deal of academic flexibility. You're absolutely right. Students can be in one school and take classes in the 5 others, and that's pretty common among students. Maybe not all 6, but definitely at least 3 or 4. And the only asterisk to that really is with music. You can't wake up one day and be like, I want to be a trumpet player. I've never played trumpet before. So that is audition only if you want to transfer into the major, even if you're at Northwestern. But it's extremely flexible.
And in that flexibility, when you take if you take into, these different schools, you can typically get into the classes. Are you,
At least from what I hear, Eli might be a better person to answer that. But I've heard students emailing them like, hey, I'm really interested in this, and it's usually doable.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Generally, I've gotten into most classes that I wanted. At least if I couldn't get it one quarter, I could get it when it came back around. But last quarter, I was kind of didn't know what I wanted my last class to be, and I was kind of late registering for one and emailed the teacher and got a permission number. But the good news is the way that kind of registration times, they rotate every quarter. So if you have a later time one quarter, you're going to have in the morning the next one. So generally I find, especially for the major, you can pre-reg. So you're normally always getting into at least one class you really want for your major every quarter. And then the others, they work themselves out.
Great.
Jaden had a question.
Yep.
Thank you. What is the process of deciding to go early decision when you're not sure about financial aid?
I think that's a Jenna question.
I'm sorry, my computer, I had the fun, your internet connection is unstable pop up. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. My question was basically asking, when deciding to go early decision, how does that work with when you're not sure how much financial aid you'll receive?
Great question. I know this was a really big concern with my parents when I decided to apply early decision where I went for undergrad. So we have a need estimated price calculator. That's what it is. Where you can put in some information about your family. You can upload information from, I believe, the CSS profile into the app calculator, and it'll give you an estimate. Students find that it's usually fairly accurate. If anything, Northwestern tends to be more generous. I also really encourage students to reach out to our financial aid office even before you hit submit for questions. They are fantastic. If you have a quick question about how to fill out one form or what something may mean, or you may need to like sit down with somebody or Zoom with somebody and go, okay, we have a lot of very specific questions. They can be a great help. If for whatever reason you apply ED, you get your financial aid package and it isn't looking like you thought it would, or something has changed, you can appeal that decision. I will say appealing, it usually needs to be like a significant loss of income. So due to job loss or like something, family separation, something like that. But financial office can work with you to kind of figure out what's the best place we can both get to. But definitely check out financial aid, whether they're a regular decision, if they're an awesome resource.
Great. Thank you, Jaden. That was such a great question. And Jenna, thank you for answering that. Somehow the hour has flown by and we are almost out of time. Before we leave, I'm going to ask, and I'll send this again in a follow-up email, if you can please take a few minutes after today's program and fill out this survey. It just is going to help us with this entire virtual college road trip. This is also the first day of the virtual college road trip. We have Stanford later this evening and phenomenal schools the rest of the month. So, although I love Northwestern, like also if you want to check out other schools, that's the reason why we have this program, and also go Wildcats. But that's just check out the program and then again, take the survey. Great, Eli put his email. I'm going to send you all a follow-up email with all of our presenters' emails. And Debbie, if you want to stay on for a moment, Michael and Jenna can stand to answer your questions.
I gotta make dinner. It's all good. I can always email them. Thank you, though.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Please do. Thank you, folks. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eli. Great to see you, bud.